I've heard Ms. Levitt argue that tariffs actually will make consumer goods cheaper, not more expensive. So I think some of this analysis is kind of upside down. In fact, it's widely agreed upon that tariffs are an import tax and that at least some share, and I think most research suggests the lion's share, is passed on to consumers in the form of higher prices. We have auto analysts out this morning suggesting that these new tariffs on autos, these sweeping tariffs on all auto imports and auto parts, will raise the price, the average price of a car between $5,000 and $10,000. That's real money for American consumers, and in that regard, I think Liberation Day is when American consumers are liberated from paying lower costs on imports, and I'm not sure they're going to like that.
It's good to see you, Jared. Welcome back. If this is Liberation Day, as the president is calling it, is he suggesting that at some point this tariff battle will result in no tariffs, a zeroing out of trade relationships? Is that not an admirable goal?
I do think that would be an admirable goal, but I'm not sure why you have to start a trade war to get there. That's kind of like it's saying an admirable goal is to make myself feel better by not banging my head against the wall. That's true, but probably a good idea not to start that in the first place. Look, all of this comes down to an idea that Dean Baker and I explored in an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal today, where you ask yourself, even the administration, by the way, contrary to the spokesperson you played, even the administration says pain first, gain later. So really, I think their best argument is that these tariffs will eventually reindustrialize America. And I think that argument is just patently wrong. There's no evidence to support it, lots of evidence pushing the other way. Happy to take anybody through that argument, but I don't see pain first, gain later. I see pain first, pain later.
Well, so let's get into that a little bit more, because in that op-ed you mentioned in the Journal today, you say that even if U.S. manufactured exports increased enough to close the trade deficit, which you say is an extremely unlikely event, and if employment grew proportionally, our manufacturing workforce share would climb only from 8% to 9%, which obviously is not super dramatic. Jared, if this is not the means through which to have that manufacturing economy revival, what actually can juice it?
Yeah, really important question, Kaylee. So first of all, that calculation is based on zeroing out the trade deficit. That hasn't happened since the mid-1970s. We can talk about whether that's something that policy should try to do. I happen to believe that there are times when the trade deficit is a clear drag on growth, and particularly on some of our manufacturing communities. So some of this impetus or motivation makes sense, which takes us to the second part of your question. We had even more success than I expected when it came to what was called our industrial policy in the Biden administration. We saw a doubling of factory construction on U.S. soil based much more on carrots than sticks. Tariffs, just these kind of broad-based tariffs, I actually think targeted tariffs can have a role, but these broad-based tariffs have never been shown to lower the trade deficit. They've never been shown, even if you do lower the trade deficit, for that to translate into more factory jobs. We had a lot more success tapping an untapped demand or elasticity for people who wanted to build factories in this country in the area of clean energy, electric vehicles, battery production. And when I say people, investors, I don't just mean American investors, I mean foreign investors. We had a surge in foreign direct investment. Now, many of those factories are underway. Those shovels are in the ground, and that's still ongoing. But that has proven already to be a lot more successful than the tariff strategy.
People spent the 4 years, many economists spent the 4 years of your time in the White House with Joe Biden, Jared, predicting a recession. And getting back to the no pain, no gain situation here, in your op-ed, you write, they failed to do so, continue to double down on their unpopular agenda, we may find ourselves testing Howard Lutnick's assertion that a recession will be worth it. So when does the recession begin?
Well, this is Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, saying, yeah, the policies that we're implementing, possibly could be recessionary, but it will be worth it because of the gains on the other side. And as I explained earlier, and as we go
Hmm.
through in some detail in the piece, that's just a wrong argument with no historical backing, no theoretical backing. Every reason to believe pain now, pain later on that. As far as a recession is concerned, one thing going for the Trump team right now is that they inherited a strong economy, and at least as far as the hard data are concerned, it's still a very solid economy. I mean, I was looking at the UI claims this morning, and they're not even flashing yellow. And I think if you're not seeing layoffs in the labor market, then you're not really looking at recessionary conditions. Now, I also noticed that Goldman Sachs marked down their first quarter GDP estimate for this year, so the quarter that we that ends at the end of this month, to 1%. Now that's down from something like well north of two for Q4, and so that kind of a deceleration that really could be problematic in terms of the labor market. But at least as far as the hard data is concerned right now, the economy is still solid.